John Fredericks, America's Godzilla of Truth. He's popular and proficient in picking politics with prophetic precision. And now J-Fred's picking sports. Are y'all ready for this? All across the airwaves and streams of the John Fredericks Media Network, John, Jack, and Nate, three guys that are pretty wise when it comes to picking winners. Football, basketball, baseball, soccer, golf, UFC battles, you name it. When the game is on your mind and money's on the line, Godzilla Wins is your guide to picking winners. Before you make that play, hear what J-Fred has to say. Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network.
Oh yeah, for entertainment purposes only.
All right, welcome to Godzilla Wins. I'm John Fredericks. I'm hosting today because my son Jack and Nate, both of them, are at a wedding somewhere where there's no internet, so they're out for the day. So I'm running the op here. It's not going to be the same without my son Jack, but it's great to be here. I am live coming to you from Fort Lauderdale, actually Deerfield Beach in Florida. And I just got to tell you this. I got off the airplane. I drove here from Cary, did my show in my hotel room in Orlando on Thursday, 11 a.m. or so. I got out the door to go see my son's team play. I'm walking in my car. It is the most gorgeous, beautiful day in Winter Park, Florida. And I'm saying to myself, why on earth do we live in Raleigh, North Carolina? And why are we considering moving to Pittsburgh? I mean, who in their right mind would not live here? And of course, now Deerfield Beach. But want to welcome our panel today with me, Sheriff Clarke, America's Sheriff. He's now a mainstay. In fact, we got to get Al to change her intro to he's in there. And also our fight guy, Patrick Assalone from targettrading.co is with us. We got a great show for you today. We're going to be bringing a lot of heat. And let me just start by this segment is brought to you by our great friends at rosiesgaming.com in Virginia. They got so many locations. They got Vinton just outside of Roanoke in Richmond, right by our office. New Kent, where Colonial Downs is Hampton. And Collinwood, right by Danville. They got a new one open in Emporia, Northern Virginia, Dumfries. Go to rosiesgaming.com. You can have so much fun there. You can bet sports. You can bet the horses. And you can bet the slots. And my wife and I, Ann, love Rosie's. We go there all the time. We have so much fun for you guys out there. Take your significant other to rosiesgaming.com. You can have fun. And like me, if things work out for you and you play your cards right, you just might get lucky twice. Go to rosiesgaming.com, rosiesgaming.com. All right, I'm going to start with a quick rant here. So spring training, I'm going to the Astros game today. I don't even know who they're playing. I saw it. I think the Cardinals in the ballpark of the Palm Beaches. So I'm doing that. No way that I'm going to come to Florida and not see my Astros play. So I'm doing that. So that's number one. But let me just tell you something. I'm going to talk for just 1 minute about horse racing. Why? Because I used to be a horse trainer for a very long time. I love the business. I had to get out of it so I could overcome my stuttering and actually go out in the world and talk to people, because unless you're training Mr. Ed, well, there's not a lot of conversation going on in the barn. But, I always complain about every sport getting ruined by the suits and wokesters, and they're changing the rules, and millennials that have no attention span, and pitching clocks and flags all over the place in football that are destroying games. But you know what? Horse racing has not changed in 100 years. There's the track. There's the wire. There's the horses. You can't go on drugs. There's no steroids. Lasix has to be registered. It's not changed, folks, in 100 years. And I was thinking about this. Horse racing, both standardbred and thoroughbred, is the most purest sport that we really have, because you can't cheat anymore. Back in the day when I was there, people messed around a little bit because the purses weren't big enough, so you had to gamble. That's all gone today, especially when you get to these thoroughbreds. Colonial Downs, which I love. I got a suite there. Ann and I. Racing starts July 13th, goes all the way through September 9th. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, post time 1:30 p.m. We're moving our whole studio operation to my suite at Colonial Downs, like we always do, in New Kent. So you want to check that out and go to colonialdowns.com. But We're looking forward to racing. I'm going to give you a lot of racing coverage going forward. We got a little experts here. So let's just start off with a couple things, guys. Let's go to the Jay Morant situation here in Alabama. And I'm going to start off with Sheriff Clarke. What's the deal with this guy?
I think it's a microcosm of the NBA and their prevalence of embracing the rap culture. These guys many of them start to emulate the rap industry, the rap figures, the rap culture. They think it's cool. It's not cool. And, these are young men. John Morant is 23 years old, but you know what? 23 years old is not 16. And what I found interesting during this last week, talking about John Morant, first of all, this is not his first run-in with some trouble. He's been in a lot of incidents recently, and he's exhibiting a behavior, and everybody was finding an excuse for it. And that's what bothers me the most out of this. I don't care what's going on in his life. He's 23 years old. There's a level of responsibility that goes with what he's doing right now, being this multimillionaire, one of the faces of the NBA, and he's got to act accordingly. Now, that does not mean this guy has to act like a choir boy and he has to walk around with, his hands folded saying his prayers all day. That's not what we're talking about. I'll point to LeBron James. I'm not a LeBron James fan, but for 20 plus years, he has been a model citizen. He's been a model symbol of the NBA. He understood, and he came in out of high school, for heaven's sakes, and he understood early on the responsibility that goes along with it. I still hear people making excuses for John Morant. Well, he's crying out for help. Well, you don't understand. He's under a lot of pressure. Stop enabling this guy. I think what the best thing that could happen to him, it won't happen, but it should. He should be suspended for the rest of the year. Why? Take something away that's very important to him and give him time to reflect. All this stuff about mental health and all this, I'm tired of them blaming this stuff on mental health, when in fact, the cry for help, I heard people saying, hey, he's crying out for help. That's not the right way to do it. He's not a kid. He's a young man. He's not a kid. Kevin Love, another NBA player, suffers from depression. All right. He reached out for help. He did it the right way. He made it clear, I'm struggling in my life right now. I have some things I got to sort out. That's how you cry out for help. You don't do the kind of crap that John Morant and others do, and then you're going to wrap yourselves around mental illness. That's an insult to people who are suffering from mental illness, who don't engage in the criminal conduct, as a cry for help.
Listen, I agree with you. I mean, there's got to be a level of accountability, especially with our younger players. And I think it's part of the whole cultural problem we're having in this nation. I agree with you 100% on LeBron James. You might not agree with everything he says or some of the tweets he does, but he's been a model citizen, never gets in trouble, good husband, as I understand it, a very loving, doting father. So you never see that, but there's got to be, some kind of a role model here. But the cowardness of the University of Alabama and the NCAA to take action and say, hey, we've had enough, and you really need to go figure this out, suspend them for the remainder of the thing, and then you go on from there. So there's a consequence, right?
Well, the guy is
there's no consequence.
That's Brandon Miller, University of Alabama. John Morant's with the Memphis Tigers.
I'm sorry. I meant Memphis. But no accountability whatsoever in this situation. And the Grizzlies aren't doing anything either about it. Nobody does it. The NBA doesn't do anything. When the general manager of the Houston Rockets put a tweet out when they were in China, right, and they put a tweet out and said, hey, you know what? China's a communist country. Maybe we should take a look at this. The guy got ran out of the Rockets for one tweet. Yet you got all this stuff going on in Memphis, and you don't get anything. Patrick, you want to weigh in
quickly here before we get to the next guest? What Memphis sees in John Morant and the NBA, they look at John Morant as a dollar sign, a commodity. And I think that's insulting, but that's part of this too. That's why they want to rush him back.
Well, Sheriff, I've got a lot of experience with this. I used to work for an agent in the NFL. We had probably over 100 guys in the NFL that we used to manage money for. And I can tell you personally, I know about these things. I started off in high school when I was wrestling. And as long as I won wrestling matches, they didn't care what I did. I could sleep on the table in front of the library at Coral Gables High School and not go to class. As long as I won wrestling matches, they did not care. The moment I got injured, I was no longer of any use to them. Boom. These guys are dollar signs. And the bigger the dollars that they bring in, the more protection that they get. I've seen it. I know it. I'm not going to get into names because for some reason, the last year I worked for this company, we had everything go nuts. We had guys shooting themselves with guns in their waistbands going into clubs. We had everything. And amazingly enough, if that would have happened to anyone else in those cities, you would have been thrown under the jail. But amazing how they get away with a slap on the wrist and everything's okay. But darn it, they can really play ball. And this is a systemic problem that starts early in their career. And the truth of the matter is, until you get very serious about it, it's never going to change because it's only about dollars and that's it.
And the thing is, Adam Silver's not doing crap about this. I mean, this is the other thing. Remember, Sheriff, in the NFL, was it maybe 8 years ago, 7 something years ago, all the problems NFL players were having, right? Remember that? I mean, It started with it started with the running back of the Ravens dragging his girlfriend, down the hallway by her hair and beating her, right? Ray, what was his name? Rice?
Right, Ray Rice.
Yeah, Ray Rice, and he was welcomed back. Yet all these things, and finally, and look, I can't stand the NFL executives, but finally Goodell said, "Hey, this has got to stop." Because why? They let it go so far that it was then hurting their brand. People were tuning it out, and they were just calling it a thug organization, and then they started cracking down, suspending people, with major suspensions. And you don't really see that in the NFL the way you saw it maybe a decade ago. So it's obviously, if you crack down and you take the short-term hit, you're going to be able to fix it. I think Adam Silver at the NBA has to do the same thing. He hasn't done anything.
No, he hasn't. And with the NFL, it was hurting the brand. And what I mean by that is it was turning fans off.
Right.
So you're talking about advertisers. They were turned off by the behavior. Remember Plexico Burris?
Yep.
Shot himself in the leg going into a nightclub in New York City. And, you look at some of that stuff, and I remember that during the, late 80s, early 90s, you couldn't go a week without some guy appearing on a police blotter,
That's
some
right.
NFL player. And they understood that only because it was affecting their pocketbook, for heaven's sakes. Other than that, they really wouldn't have cared. And I think that's what's going on in the NBA right now. So far, it's not affecting their pocketbook. And that's why I'll go back to what I said earlier about people are expressing all this, oh, John Morant, oh, I feel so bad for him. Oh, that young man needs to, no. That young man needs to be taught accountability. It's the best teacher that we have is accountability. Just like when I was raised by my father, he taught me early on accountability for your actions. And John Morant didn't have that. You look at the behavior of his father. His father's acting like his friend instead of a father, for heaven's sakes. And so, there's just a lot going on culturally here that people don't want to touch. People don't want to talk about. And that's kind of the thing that I do. It's kind of part of my brand. As I give people straight talk and I go, hey, look, this is just, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm saying, here's my view. I don't dance around the edges. This young man, $231 million contract, he can't get his head around that. You and I go, oh my God, how could he? He's making all this money. He can't get his head around that, for heaven's sakes.
That's right.
And these other things that he has coming on with contracts, Powerade, and he's got a Nike shoe brand, but he can't get his head around this stuff as to the value of it. And a lot of it has to do with his upbringing. So, I wish the guy well, I really do. But you know what? Unless he's taught a lesson, this isn't going away.
Well, listen, and your comment on fathers, I agree with you 100%, because when you made that statement about he's his father, not his friend. If I had a quarter for every time I told my two boys, Claire is different, it's a daughter. It's, she manipulates her father. She's been going on forever, got me wrapped around her finger. I get that. But with the boys, if I had a quarter for every time I said to them, I'm not your friend, I'm your father, right? I don't care if you're mad at me. I don't care if you don't talk to me. I don't really care. My job is to raise you into a fine young man. That's it. That's my job. So I'm not your friend. And so it's a different relationship. Now, as you get older, obviously that transpires a little bit, but if I had a quarter for every time I told my two sons that, I could retire today. So as a father, you got to be able to lead this. You see, this guy's father, Morant, you're right. I mean, where is he? He's basically defending him. I mean, you go to a nightclub and you're brandishing a gun and you're an NBA star and you're representing the city of Memphis. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, why would he even compel you to do that and think it was okay?
Yeah, he was involved in a couple of instances over the summer. Like I said, this isn't new and this isn't his first time. He was involved in an incident with, he was playing a pickup game and a 17-year-old kid and him got into it. And Morant went after him. Now this is allegedly from the victim, 17-year-old.
Right.
Morant struck him 12 times. And then, later on, they get involved in the pickup game again and something happened. Morant goes into the house. They're at his house. He comes out with a gun in his waistband and he's taunting the guy. And this happened in the summer. So where was his father then when he read the news accounts? I know his father doesn't, he's not with him 24/7. But when he saw this, when he turned on the radio, when he picked up the paper and read this, he should have said, what the hell is this?
Exactly.
So, I mean, it's just a lot. And I think it has to do a lot with the culture, more so than anything else, the culture within these communities. But that's something nobody wants to go near, right? That gets a little dicey when you start delving into that end of the pool. But I'm not afraid of that end of the pool. I'm trying to help this kid. And I say that, I'm talking about in terms of leading a conversation on it.
Right.
I can't help Ja directly, but that, you know what? Ja Morant goes out with a piece, with a gun, and he gets into it with some street goofs. They'll shoot him.
Yeah.
They'll shoot him in the blink of an eye. Ja Morant.
Yeah, Patrick knows. Gun. Patrick knows a little about that.
Go ahead, Patrick.
You know what I say all the time, Sheriff, and I have more respect for you than anybody can ever imagine. And thank you for saying what you're saying.
You're welcome.
People have no idea who they're going to run into the moment you walk out of your front door. I've got kids that I roll with that will break your neck in the drop of a dime, who look like the biggest nerds you've ever seen. They're not going to let you have a chance to go back in your house. The moment you start with them, your limbs start breaking, because that's the way we coach them. You fight, you're on. That's it. There is no waiting. There is no hesitating. There is no nothing. You made the conscious effort to go into your house and grab a gun. Let's just say that this probably isn't the worst decision he's made before. These are the only ones we know about.
Right.
These are a problem, and they don't stop until somebody stops you.
Right.
And I, a lot of people, they don't really understand how things work like this.
Right.
I have lived a life of violence by choice since I was wrestling and fighting. I love it. I don't bring it on anyone who doesn't want any part of it. But if you're looking for it, I'm your guy. I'm more than happy to give it to you. And one day, these guys are going to run into people who are really hardcore and do not care who these cats think they are.
Right.
No, that's the issue.
Especially these clubs that he's hanging out in. That's where you see a lot of this violence happen. I'm speaking from experience in terms of, being a cop for over 40 years. These clubs, that's where this stuff happens. And he's hanging out in that environment. I don't care if he goes to a club or not, fine. But he's got to be a little careful, and in terms of his selections of where he hangs out and who he hangs out with, because like Patrick just said, in the club, the guy didn't care. He's Ja Morant. If Ja Morant shows a piece, pulls his shirt back and then guns in his waist, the guy will shoot him.
That's right.
I
They
will.
got to be careful. I mean, this is what, look, there's got to be sports is so important for young people. I'm such a believer in it. Both my boys played ball up till they were, older. My son now going to college to pitch at West Virginia. Both of them played ball. Sports is so critical, and going to games, and you look up to athletes. I mean, you just do. You want to emulate them, and so there's got to be a responsibility here, and the league has to take some responsibility. I talked to you about Alabama early. I mean, I'm disgusted that university, with the problems going on with their star players, taking no action, and because you got the supporters in there of the Crimson Tide. They just want to win games. I mean, we got to take a step back from this. Speaking of that,
yeah, but John, one last thing on this. The NBA with their discipline policy, and you guys know this. When you're gonna dish out discipline, so to speak, it has to be close to the event so people can make the association as to why they're being disciplined. Gilbert Arenas had a handgun in a locker room several years ago, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. The NBA suspended him for 50 games. I want to see that same type of penalty come down for John Morant. Not because he had it in the locker room, but he had it on a team plane. Prohibited.
That's the only way. That's the only way you're going to get rid of this stuff, is if there's severe consequences.
And quick.
And look, if you take Major League Baseball, right? We had remember all the steroids thing, and Barry Bonds' head got like 8 feet big or something. He had the McGuire and all these people. Now you get Clemens was taking steroids. They cracked down, and now it's gone. You can't take them because they test you randomly, and if they find it in your system, you get a major suspension. Right? 50 games, 60 games, a season. They don't mess around with it. I mean, if you're going to take action, which gets me to, there was an ESPN rant the other day, and I want to bring this back to you, and then we're going to get to picking games here. One of the ESPN analysts, Perkins, got into it about choosing the MVP, and it got into race. What went down there, Sheriff Clarke? Because it got all over the internet. It was quite the argument.
Nothing escapes race politics. Nothing is sacred. Nothing is immune from the race issue in our society. We've become a race-obsessed culture. And I say we. This was brought on by the left. Let's be honest. We don't need to get real political here. But when I say we, I should categorize that, because this group here, we don't do that sort of thing. But we get dragged into it, right? So Kendrick Perkins makes this statement that Djokovic, I'm sorry, not Djokovic, that's a tennis player. Jokic from the Denver Nuggets, white guy, outstanding player. He's won back-to-back MVPs, regular season MVPs. He's predicted to win his 3rd straight. That's a little unprecedented, 3 straight. However, Kendrick Perkins, who's black, who played in the league, it's one of the problems I have with these ex-athletes, these ex-jocks, being on some of these shows, because they're not real articulate. Anyway, he came out and he smeared every white writer that gets to vote for MVP. And he said the reason they're going to vote for him is because he's white. Now, I'll tell you right now, if a white guy said that, if a former white player was on one of those panels, one of those shows, and said, the only reason this is happening because he's black, he'd be off the air. You know it, and I know it. He makes a ridiculous statement like that with no proof, no foundation, smears an entire class of sports writers by saying they're only voting for Nikola Jokic because he's white, for heaven's sakes. And, first of all, ESPN should step in and do what they do. Remember when Rush Limbaugh was doing Monday Night Football?
Right.
And he said about Donovan McNabb, the only reason Donovan McNabb gets any attention is because the league needs a black quarterback to be able to talk about. Took him right off the air. And I'm not saying they shouldn't have. That's up to ESPN. But what he said wasn't, first of all, there's some truth to it, number one. And number two, it wasn't that scandalous what he said. He didn't say anything disparaging. He didn't say anything, use any rhetoric that was out of line. So anyway, it starts this flurry. Fortunately, guys like Charles Barkley came to, attacked Kendrick Perkins and said that stuff's ridiculous, because it is. But for him to drag that out like that, it is the league. No other sport has as many black participants, black coaches as the NBA. So you got one white guy who's very good, by the way, who wins a couple of awards, and all of a sudden they're going to start attacking him because he's white. This stuff is, people get sick of this crap.
This is why I was so upset over the kneeling and the NFL and all this stuff. When you watch sports, right, you want to escape. The reason I'm going to the Astros game today at West Palm Beach. I'm going to sit there for 2.5 hours. Ann comes in later tonight. I watch an Astro game. I watch a Titans game. I watch college basketball last night. I turn my phone off. I don't want to do politics. I don't want to do culture wars. I don't want to do race. I want to watch athletes compete like I did my whole life. And I get it back to horse racing. You never get any of this in horse racing because they're horses. You never get it with the jockeys. You never get it with the trainers. You never get it with anything. It's just the sport. That's why it's so pure and why I'm such a fan of it. But like, I don't want to be involved. I just don't want to be involved in this. I just want to go, like when they were kneeling, what pissed me off is, I'd go on CNN and they'd be asking me about it. And I'd be like, the hell do I care? Look, I'm interested in how my defense is going to stop Lamar Jackson, not the 6 guys that kneel down. Like, I want to escape from that. That's one of the issues. Patrick, I want to bring you in here, talk a little bit about your company. And you're one of our sponsors here on Godzilla Wins. And I want to thank you for that, because without you, Patrick, we're trying to get this company off the ground, and my son's working hard. So we appreciate all you do. You've got a pretty significant track record with our students in 2022, win-loss record in trading when they go live. Patrick, founder and chairman of Target Trading Academy. Go to targettrading.co, sign up there. Tell us about, you talk about results. Tell us about your results 2022.
Well, let me pull that up in 1 second, but I can tell you yesterday we were 32-3. So 32 wins, 3 losses. And that's not 17 people taking one trade and 15 people taking another. These are different opportunities. Each one of them is unique, 32-3. Over the week, we were 115-31. So it's 115 wins, 31 losses. And if you want to go back, let's see, so far, let's say last year, we were 4,621 wins, 1,331 losses, and 198 break-evens. So far this year, we're 911 wins, 282 losses, and 55 break-evens for a 73% win ratio.
Now, let me tell you, folks, it's only going to get better, because you're seeing what's happening in the stock market now. And the way Patrick teaches this is they game the system and he games them. That's why I love this company. And the biggest fan of it is my wife, Ann. She's a huge fan of this. Takes a lot of discipline, but the gangster bankers are up there on Wall Street. They've been, exploiting working people. They're going to continue to game the system, and Patrick's system is he games them. This is the beauty of it. This is like buying GameStop stocks on steroids. You stick it to the man. Go to targettrading.co, get more information there, and just say Godzilla, you're going to get 15% off. Targettrading.co, check it out. Great hedge for second income. You can put as much time in it as you want. We got so many students that are happy there. Targettrading.co. I said GameStop was GameStop. And
Patrick, let me ask you.
It's like GameStop on steroids, because we all. I remember my son. I used to take him to both boys in there. They used to have such a good time. It was such a big deal, and it was like almost buying stock in them was almost my being avenged. Okay, let's get to basketball.
Let me ask Patrick a quick question, because I'm interested in what he does, and I'm kind of impressed. Not kind of. About your success rate, but explain for us, including myself, how do you determine a win and how do you determine a loss and how do you determine a break even?
Okay, well, first of all, let's say, and this gets a little bit involved, but let's say you're trading oil and we measure off our risk because I teach you how to do that. So let's say you're risking 15 ticks, which every tick is worth $10, it's $150. Every win is an executed win, meaning you have put an order on the screen, you have put an order to exit and a stop order to protect yourself. Which one gets hit first? The limit order that you win or the stop that you lose? When the limit order gets hit, the order is executed. You are now up in that particular instrument oil, $150. That's a win. If you get stopped out, that's a loss. If you break even, price has moved enough in your favor to move to break even, and now it's a wash. Now you're just waiting to see what happens, or you get stopped out at break even, therefore you've lost nothing. You will never be allowed to get into a trade without knowing your risk. There's parameters, and if it's disqualified, it's disqualified. You move on to the next one. End of story.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Sheriff.
TargetTrading.co. Check it out. Mention Godzilla, the most famous promo code in the history of the world, and you get 15% off. Godzilla. Okay. Oh man, let's get to basketball. We got to roll. I got picks. I've been on fire, right? I got so many picks here. I'm so excited about some of these games. I'm just going to go ahead and start off and roll. We're going to go through basketball. Then we'll get to the fight card. We'll turn that over to Patrick. Okay. Number one, SEC. Missouri today, +9 over Alabama. This team has got nothing to lose. That comeback victory, Sheriff, they had last night. I mean, nobody saw them beating Tennessee. Tennessee's got the game in hand with 3 minutes to go, right? Mizzou comes back. Then they give their first-year coach a massive extension last night, $4 million. He's been there one season. He gets an extension. And it was a long one, like eight or something, at $4 million per year, like a $32 million deal over 8 years, which he got last night after this win. Missouri's got nothing to lose here, right? I love teams with points in these conference championships that are playing loose, having fun. You could see how much fun they were having last night. Now, everybody knows how good Alabama is, and that's why they're favored by 9. But Mizzou's tough, and they showed me a lot of mettle last night. Now, it's tough to come back after a game like that. Everybody's going to bet Alabama, figuring, they won easy. Mizzou's, overtaxed. They're going to have a letdown. I love Missouri in this game, +9. It's my best bet of the day. Secondly, Sheriff Clarke's favorite overachiever, overrated team, Marquette, -2 over Xavier. Come on, Marquette is going to win this game, right? Xavier's not going to beat him. This thing should be 7 or 8. This is a gift. I love Marquette here, -2, and I know Sheriff's going to argue with me, but I'm not going to make any money betting on Xavier against Marquette in this game. Look, they keep winning. They don't win by a lot. That's why they're only a 2-point favorite. Every game is 2 or 3, but they keep winning. So I like Marquette. Okay. I got so many picks here. I'm so fired up today. Another best bet, right? The Duke Blue Devils -3 over Virginia. Are you kidding me? This Duke team is unbelievable. Their interior defense got to be one of the best in all of college basketball. But this guy, Kyle Filipowski, this center, he's unstoppable. When the game is on the line, if you saw against North Carolina last week, at North Carolina, they make 2 threes, they get up by 3. Minute and a half to go, right? Looks like they were going to come back and win the game at home. You got Dean Smith there cheering in the stands, right? What does Duke do? They get the ball down the court, they isolate Filipowski, they get it to him, he posts up. One of 2 things happens. He either scores or they double team him and he gets fouled. And he goes to the line and sinks him. The guy is an absolute beast. Duke is probably the most underrated team. If you watch this team and you understand basketball, that interior defense, they're fast, they've got depth, they're playing together. They're all these young players on this team. It's like every game they get better. This is what you look for going down the stretch. They're -3. Virginia's been overrated with Tony Bennett from the beginning. Anybody loves Bennett. He's another creation of the media. Tony Bennett this, Tony Bennett that, their defense this. I'm sick of the whole thing, right? They're just not that good. They don't score. I love Duke in this game. Final. I got two more and I'm done. Okay. You want to make some money? Grand Canyon today, -5 over Utah State. They won 5 in a row, 7 of 8. These are one of these games in these off conferences where there's a total mismatch. They got a better defense. I'm going to lay the 5 there. I like Grand Canyon over Southern Utah. And then my final play of the day is a team that I picked to win the whole thing, which is the Houston Cougars -10 over Cincinnati Bearcats. Normally, I don't like laying 9 or 10 in a game like this, right? Semifinals of the championship. You know, both teams are playing tight, but the Cougars defense in this league, right? Which is what? The American Conference, not very good. Cincinnati, not very good. The Cougars defense, awesome. They got the best defense against the 3. They've got the lowest scoring defense so far this season. They're 29-2. They're going to win this game. You know, maybe they don't cover. They win by 8. So somebody gets fouled at the end. But I like the Cougars -10. Those are my plays. Sheriff Clarke, all you.
Wow. Before we get into some of your bets there, and you, John, you're gonna have to help me out with the point spreads here. I didn't write the point spreads down, but I got a couple matchups here. I'm gonna start in the Big Ten, the conference that can't count to 14. Ohio State at Purdue. Ohio State has come on, a couple of upsets throughout the conference tournament. But I think at this point now the clock is going to strike midnight and the glass slipper is going to fall off. They play Purdue. And you know about Purdue, right? There's Purdue and then there's everybody else.
No, that's what Nate said.
Yeah, I know. But anyway, Ohio State started the year strong. They were in the top 15, I think. And then at midseason around December, they just fell apart completely. They're under 500, their record. I think they're 14-18 right now. I still expect them to give Purdue a little run for their money. However, I'm going to take, you got the spread on that one, Ohio State, Purdue?
I'm trying to find, yes. Purdue -7.5.
7.5. Man, that's a lot. I think I would go to Ohio State and take those points. That's the first one. The next one, Texas and Kansas. This is going to be a classic. All right. You got the Longhorns, the Jayhawks, their coach is in the hospital. However, Kansas is a machine, for heaven's sakes. And every time they get into one of these games where somebody you think is going to give them a challenge, they kind of waltz through the game and win handily. What's the spread in that one? Kansas, Texas.
Kansas is -2.
Yeah, I take Kansas in that one. And then, of course, you know, there's Duke and Virginia. You're right, John. You know, Virginia wants to keep the game in the 50s. I think
it's like ridiculous. Tony, tell me that everybody loves Virginia because Tony Bennett, and he's so good looking and he's so glib and gab, and they all love going to Charlottesville with all the, you know, everybody's got a mask on, right? Whatever. So they all the Virginia is a total hype of the media, right? This team is going nowhere. They don't score. In order to win big games, you have to score points. That you're not going to win in the dance 55-49. It's not going to happen. This team doesn't score. They're so overrated. Now, the thing is, I can't bet the game on DraftKings because my count is in Virginia, and the way the state legislature passed it there, you can't bet any basketball teams in Virginia. So I can't bet. So that kind of pisses me off, right? That's why I'm hot. But yeah, I mean, what they're going to hold this offense that Duke has to 55? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's their style. That's their brand, so to speak. They lock down on defense. They are a good defensive team. That's what the Bennett is, just like his old man has always preached, was tough defense. It's kind of a little bit like the Wisconsin Badgers, where his dad coached for a while. You know, they win games in the 50s, so they're going to have to try to keep Duke somewhere in the 50s. If Duke can reach 62 points, they're going to win this game. They've been scoring mightily lately. The Duke Blue Devils, the light finally went on. Their rotation, 5 freshmen out of their rotation of 8, 4 starting freshmen. They're shooting lights out from the 3 last night. I think it was 50%. The night before, last night against Miami, the night before, they shot 62% from the 3-point line. So that's why I said if they can get this game up in the 60s, and if it's up in the 70s, it's going to be a walkaway. It'll still be a tough game because it's the ACC. These teams are familiar with each other. But I'll tell you what's going to be in the back of the Duke players' minds. If you go back to that game, February in Charlottesville, Duke and Virginia went down to the wire. A foul was called with 0.2 seconds left in the game. The refs went to the videotape and said that the whistle came before or came after. When it didn't, you could hear it and you could see it. But anyway, that game, they got robbed. They're in an 8-game winning streak. I said to you 9 yesterday. The reason is they won that game. It's revenge time for Duke. And then the last one I'm going to look at is Arizona, UCLA. UCLA starting guard went down. He's a scorer. That's going to hurt a little bit, but I like UCLA. I think that UCLA just has this grit about them. What's the spread in that Arizona and UCLA game, John?
Arizona's +1.
+1. Take Arizona in that one.
Yeah, I kind of like that also, but this whole defense. Look, my mentor in coaching basketball was the great Paul Westhead. I was a Paul Westhead disciple.
USC.
I got the books he was written. I went to his camps as a basketball coach. I am a Paul Westhead disciple. I ran that fast break offense, press all the time, and my philosophy was half the defense, double the offense. All I got to do is score more points than you do, and I win the game. I mean, this whole defensive thing. Yeah, I get the defense, but you got to score. And if I could score 80, back in those days of, we could put 80, 86, 90 up, you're never going to beat. I don't care how many times you get a fast break. And by the time, if you run, you just wear them out, especially at the high school level. So just a shout out.
One last thing. Go ahead.
Well, just a shout out to the great Paul Westhead. That was one of the greatest basketball minds ever. Never really made it in the NBA. Couldn't take that style to the NBA, but just I used to go to his camps, and he was a great teacher, and he really understood how to run that offense. And those were some of the best times I ever had, was going to his coaching camps on the weekend. The great Paul Westhead. One of the things with Paul Westhead, I remember him at USC, is he ran into the John Wooden era. All right, and USC could not beat UCLA. But anyway, going back to Filipowski, guy reminds me of a Kevin Durant. Yeah, I'm going to compare the white guy to the black guy here. He reminds me of Kevin Durant. He can do it all. He can put the ball on the floor. He can lead the break. He can post up. He can hit the 3, and he hits free throws. He reminds me also of a guy like Luka Doncic, although Filipowski can play defense and John Doncic can't. He reminds me of Christian Laettner too. He can do it all. The guy is, I think he is right now one of the most dangerous players. If this game is coming down the wire, they're going to just. And the other thing is, watch the way he posts up. Right now, I used to tell you, when I coached basketball, I used to make my guards post up. Like, if you can't post up, you can't play for me. You have to be able to post up. If you watch the way this guy spreads it out, and he posts up and then he backs in, and he baits the double team. I mean, the guy, this is got to be one of the best post up players I've ever seen. The fundamentals are textbook. He'll bait the double team, and then they're going to foul him, or he'll find the open guy. I mean, he's got eyes in the back of his head. This guy Filipowski is something special. All right, so let's go over our picks. Then we got to get to fights. You heard Sheriff picks. Recap mine again. Missouri, since I picked them, everybody's faded me on DraftKings, right? So they're fading me. Go ahead, fade me. It went up to 9.5. That's fine. You know, at your own risk, you want to fade me, fine. That went up to 9.5. Marquette, I love them -2 over Xavier. I love Duke -3. I'd lay 6. I love Duke in this game. Grand Canyon -5.5 over Southern Utah, and the Cougs -10 over hapless Cincinnati. Patrick Assalone. We got a fight card coming up today. You got analytics on it. Patrick, what do you say?
Let me blow through the top 3 fights, but I also wanted to say I cannot place any bets this week in college basketball because I don't have Jack's picks to fade. So I'm staying away. You guys are so tuned in and so plugged into it, but please don't take this the wrong way. I'm just going to fade Jack because it's a much safer bet. So I won't be betting college basketball today. Okay, UFC fight tonight. Peter Yan versus Merab Davishvili. Peter Yan, excellent striker. Davishvili, phenomenal wrestler. Peter Yan's nasty piece of work last night, throw punched Davishvili in the neck at the weigh-in, which I'm not a big fan of that kind of stuff. I just rather, pound somebody's skull into dust in a cage, but you got to sell a fight. I get it. Davishvili, I'm going to take it. He is, let's see here. He's plus 215. So the reason why I'm going to take Davishvili in this fight is because he's a takedown machine. He can take damage all freaking day long, and Peter Yan can throw it out. But this is something that a lot of people don't understand. I think Davishvili's takedowns are better than Peter Yan's takedown defense. And when you start taking people down and letting them up and taking them down and letting them up, you exhaust people. And the longer you go, the worse it gets for the striker or the person that's being taken down. So I'm going to go with Davishvili. I also think that Peter Yan might try to press this fight. He's had a couple of bad decision losses, and it sort of kind of makes people a little bit anxious, and you want to end it and don't put it in the hands of the judges. I don't ever like putting anything in the hands of the judges because I don't trust any of these cats, because most of these guys have never had a fight in their lives. So maybe if Peter Yan gets a little over aggressive, that plays into Davishvili's hands. So my pick is Davishvili. Then we've got the battle of the Alexanders, Volkov versus Romanov. This is almost the same fight. Volkov is 6'7", primarily a striker. Romanov is a really, really good takedown and submission guy at about 6'2". I think because he's so tall, Volkov, his defense and his movement is not really going to hamper Romanov. Looking for Romanov to do exactly the same thing, step in, take him down, beat him up. Problem is, well, something, Volkov's plus 130, Romanov minus 155. I take that bet too. I would definitely take that one too. And then a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about Ryan Spann versus Nikita Krylov. This got postponed. The story was Krylov got food poisoning. I'm not so sure about that. Maybe it was a weight cut problem. And the reason I say this is I never had a fight where I did not eat exactly the same thing that I ate the preceding 12 weeks. I did everything exactly the same way, prepared it the same way, didn't go out to eat because I get hyper paranoid about stuff like food poisoning because I've seen it. I got sick one time eating sushi 3 days before a fight. I was puking my guts out. And I never, ever did it again for 3 days. So I'm thinking maybe he had a problem with the weight cut. That's but that remains to be seen. I am still going to take Ryan Spann. He's hyper athletic. He can choke you out from literally freaking anywhere. And he hits really hard. Krylov is a tough dude, more of a plodding type striker offense, really good on the ground. But I got to go with the more athletic guy. The longer it goes, though, the better chance for Krylov. So I'm going to take Spann at plus 140.
So you're taking 3 underdogs, right? You're taking
Yes.
Ryan Spann plus 140. You're taking Davish,
Davish
you
Vili
also,
and
right?
Romanov. Yep.
And Romanov and Davish, you I think plus 210, and then you're taking Romanov. So Alexander Romanov. So you got 3 dogs here. By the way, you want to bet these fights? All you got to do, UFC, go to DraftKings.com, download their free sportsbook app. That's all I use. I love DraftKings. Download their free sportsbook app. You can do that now. And right now, they got another special on there, which basically you can get $50 in free bets immediately. Do what you want with it. All you have to do is go to DraftKings.com, download their free sportsbook app in a state where it's eligible, and then put in promo code Godzilla, and you're going to get the best deal they have. Some of them differ by state, so it depends on where you are, but just download their free app, put in promo code Godzilla right off the bat. You're going to get the best bet. And they've got checking all of the apps. They really do the best job with UFC. So Patrick just there gave you 3 winners against Spann, hopefully, right? For entertainment purposes. Spann, you, and Romanov, but all of them underdogs. So you win 2 of the 3, you got to have a great day. You win all 3. And if you really got stones, right? You parlay these 3, you do a 3-way parlay, and then you got all the underdogs. And if they all hit, you're going to have a really nice weekend. I can tell you that. So Patrick, thank you for that. What do you see? I got a couple more minutes here. You know, the future of prize fighting, and obviously this you know, when I grew up, you know, you had the heavyweight division, middleweight, you had boxing, Friday night boxing. I couldn't even tell you now who the heavyweight champion is in just traditional prize fighting. If you offered me $1,000, and you know, when I was a kid growing up, you know, Joe Frazier, Smoker Joe, Muhammad Ali. Then as I got older, you had Mike Tyson, etc. Like, I have no earthly idea. If you offered me $1,000, I couldn't tell you who that heavyweight champion is, right? Growing up, you always knew that. Cassius Clay, George Chuvalo, you had all the names in your head. What's the future now of just traditional boxing?
I think it's dead as disco. And it's not that they're not phenomenal athletes, because boxers are absolutely the best at what they do. The problem is the game has evolved so much, and there's so much action and so much visual stimulation coming at you. It's no longer relevant in my opinion. I mean, I love MMA fighting. Yes, I did it for 14 years. I was a minor world champion. But if you're looking for striking, you've got Thai boxing, which is even more phenomenal. 3-minute rounds where these guys are going nuts. Boxing is just, in my opinion, it's outdated. It's done.
Wow. Well,
Amazing.
It's going the way of the, what did you say? Going the way of the disco.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It really is. John, as you indicated, growing up in that era where boxing was a big deal, and you know, but they had personalities too.
Right.
You know, you had your Sugar Ray Leonards, and you know, even you guys like who was that big fight he had with the bald-headed guy? It's one of the bigger boxing matches of all time. But anyway, his name will come back. Marvin Hagler, thanks. Yeah, you know, you had matchups like that. You had guys with personality, people that you could, you know, that you could gravitate toward. It's amazing with boxing. WWF outdoes boxing right now.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, look, when we grew up, that's right. I mean, it goes back obviously to, you know, you had Joe Louis, obviously, even before we were born. But then, you know, you had Ali, you had Smoking Joe Frazier, you know, and then remember there was like Jimmy Spinks knocked somebody out in the third. Yeah, you had George Foreman, you had Rope-a-Dope, the Thriller in Manila, and you know, all the things that you watch. I remember as a kid, my father taking me to that Joe Frazier Muhammad Ali fight. We had to listen to it on the radio because back then it was not on TV. There was no pay-per-view. But then he took me to the movie theater to see the replay of it. It was, you know, We already know what the outcome is, but my father took me to the theater like you were seeing a movie, and it was like 15 rounds or something. And so, you knew all the personalities. My father at the time loved Smoking Joe, and he didn't like Ali because he avoided the draft or something. His politics got into it, but and he bet Frazier that time. But it was very different because you knew all the personalities, and that is gone by the wayside. And then, like you say, the Hagler, I think, wasn't Hagler like a middleweight, and then he fought the heavyweight division, and that I forget who he fought. I remember seeing that in Augusta when I was there on closed circuit TV. The place was packed. I forgot who he fought back then, but that's all gone now. I mean, it's all replaced with this MMA and other things. Okay, let's get our picks now to win the whole thing, basketball champion. And obviously, we're going to do it again next week when Jack and Nate are back. But let's get those picks in now. And I'm going to start with Sheriff Clarke. You got to make a decision right now. Who's going to win the whole thing?
Gonzaga.
All right, I'm picking the Houston Cougars to win it all. I've already bet.
Of course you are.
Plus 550 to 1. Cougs, baby. Okay, let's get to baseball, and then we got to roll. So I'm going to spring training game today. Pat, and I'll get to Sheriff Clarke. Okay, I'm going to give you the final word. Give me your rant on the Cubs, right? Look, it's spring training. Everything is even. The beauty of opening day, which is coming up in just a couple weeks, is, everybody's got a shot. Everybody's 0-0. Tell me about your beloved Cubs this season.
All right. First of all, I don't follow too much of spring training. However, they are expected to be competitive, and that hasn't been the case for a while. So nobody's going hog wild. Nobody's picking win the division, although they're going to be competitive, and they could win that division. The division is not that strong. We're a ways away from the World Series, getting to the World Series or even winning it. But I just want to see some competitive baseball down in Wrigleyville, and their bullpen's going to be good. Starting pitching will be okay. But I want to get to the 4th of July, unlike last year, John. It was over.
You guys were out by the 4th of July last year.
Yeah.
You said the whole season, well, you got to wait till the 4th of July, John. You got to wait. I don't pay attention. It's early in the season. Yeah. And then we got to Independence Day, and they were 15 games out, and the season was over.
Right.
So how'd that work out for you last season?
It didn't. So I'm expecting at least 4th of July. We're still talking Cubs are relevant in terms of division. The division. Let's start small.
You must have said that 15 times for 15 weeks. I'm not. Wait till the 4th of July. Then it comes and they're 20 games out and the season's over, and they did a fire sale.
You had a good time rubbing my nose in that all year.
But at least know it's over early, Sheriff Clarke. It's over early. At least you know that.
Well, listen. Final thing here. We got to get to the NFL. I got a minute and a half. I love what the Bears did, right? They trade their number 1 pick to the Panthers, who are going to pick Bryce Young. The Bears already have their quarterback in Justin Fields. They're sticking with him. So they get a lot of return from the Panthers. What was your view on that, Sheriff Clarke?
First of all, the draft is, the NFL draft, you really don't know until about 3 years down the road how your draft is going to do. I don't think Justin Fields is the answer. I'm not saying he's a bust. He can't pass the ball. He can throw the ball, but he's not accurate. He doesn't read. As soon as he makes one read and then he bails out and he takes off. Prolific runner. You don't need a quarterback who can gain 1,000 yards for on the ground. So yeah, it's a good trade for them, no doubt about it. High risk, but the draft, there's very few guys in their first year that come off the draft board, even in the top, 32 or whatever that make a splash. So it'll be too early. Bears got so many holes, though. They got to draft smartly. Otherwise, this thing will not pan out for them.
Well, we'll see what happens as far as the Titans are concerned. With the whole show, and I had to mention him at the end, all this talk about trading Derrick Henry, it's all a smokescreen, okay? Amy Adams Strock, the owner, is trying to get a $1.2 billion stadium through A, the city council and the mayor, and then B, it has to go to the city for a referendum. If you think they're going to trade the face of the franchise, Derrick Henry, when they got to get a referendum on the ballot to get a new stadium and piss off their entire fan base that is going to vote no, you don't understand anything that's going on. So they're not going to trade Derrick Henry. Want to thank our sponsor for this, Ignite45.com. Look, folks, if you want a business out there, you need a website, you need social media, you need digital, got to get in the game. You got to understand social media to help your business. There is one place to go. Great sponsor of ours, Ignacio Falco and his wife started this business, Ignite45.com. Here's what they do. They're affordable. They talk to you. They work with you. They help you understand it. They started this on their own. They quit their jobs to help small businesses out. Get more information. All you have to do is go to Ignite45.com, Ignite45.com. They'll take good care of you. They'll give you an evaluation. You go from there. Plus, you mention Godzilla, put in promo code Godzilla. Boom, you get $100 off your first order. Ignite45.com. Check it out right now. In fact, they just gave away a free website to one of our listeners at $6,000 value. That's another one coming down the pike, Ignite45.com. I want to thank everybody on Godzilla Wins. I want to thank Sheriff Clarke for being with us. I want to thank our panel, also Patrick Assalone, for going over the fights. I'm going to the game today. And Sheriff, you and Patrick, you probably don't know this, but I'm turned 65 on Sunday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday,
I'm a senior.
John.
I'm going to be a senior citizen. But here's the best thing about turning 65. Starting Sunday, I'm on Medicare.
That's right.
I finally get something back from the federal government. And Ann was like, well, maybe should we sign up? And I'm like, you bet we're signing up. Any benefit that I can get before it collapses in bankruptcy, I want it. So I'm on Medicare. So I think I'll just go to a doctor, just for a checkup and give them all the government cards and see what happens. Thanks, guys, for being with us. Next up on our radio network, you're in the war room. No sports there. It's Stephen K. Bannon. I'll see you Monday, 6 a.m., bright and early. Everybody have a great weekend. Thank you.